You can't hear anything. You stay in your room all day like you don't even exist. Why didn't the explosion just kill you back then?
Mom, you wanted me gone?
Come on, you'll love this.
Vivian! Vivian!
Alex, I'm sorry.
On New Year's Eve, my sister, Vivian Vasquez, dragged me to the village entrance to watch the fireworks. Some bratty kid tossed a burning firecracker the wrong way, and it exploded right next to my ear, after a brief burst of agony and a deafening buzz. The world fell silent to me forever. The doctor said my cochlea was badly damaged, and surgery wasn't an option. I went deaf and fell into depression. Vivian took a year off from school and stayed with me every day. She said, "Alex, I'm sorry," scream. At me, hurt me, but please, don't shut me out. Dad quit his job and became a stay-at-home father, taking care of everything in my daily life. Alex, what do you feel like eating today? I'll make it for you. Mom looked like she had aged 10 years from the stress. She traveled all over the world for my treatment and spent all our savings to have a pair of expensive hearing aids custom-made for me in Germany, but it barely worked half the time. The sound kept cutting out. They protected and cherished me with the utmost care, a devotion that lasted for 5 whole years. I thought love could heal anything, and I would eventually crawl out of the darkness. Then the blow came. Mom's business partner ran off with the money, overwhelmed by the mess left behind. She didn't return home until the dead of night. She sat on the edge of my bed, exhausted, and asked if I'd been good today and if I'd taken my medicine on time. She asked again and again, but I couldn't make out a single word. Her patience finally ran out. She screamed, "You can't hear. You can't hear anything. You stay in your room all day like you don't even exist. Why didn't the explosion just kill you back then? At least then you wouldn't be torturing me like this." She thought I couldn't hear her, but at that exact moment, my hearing aid kicked back on. Every word landed like a needle straight into my heart. So I'd been torturing Mom this whole time, and she wanted me dead. Mother stormed out and flung the door shut, leaving the entire frame trembling in her wake. Silence reclaimed the room, heavy and stifling. It was a void more frightening than the literal silence I had lived in since losing my hearing. I curled under the blanket, squeezing myself into the smallest ball I could. Like a frightened little animal, I held a large brown teddy bear tightly in my arms, clutching it as if it were my only lifeline. It was Mom's gift to me on my first birthday after I went deaf. Back then, she held the bear, which was almost as tall as I was, kissed me with a smile, then wrote, "Alex, I'm busy with work and can't always be by your side. Consider this bear as me. It will protect you forever." The stuffed bear was still smiling. But Mom, who had promised she'd protect me forever, had just said she wished I were dead. Tears spilled out uncontrollably, falling in heavy drops that soaked the pillow in seconds. I thought of Dad. He used to laugh all the time and loved the outdoors, but for my sake, he had barely gone anywhere these past few years. The corners of his eyes were lined with wrinkles. Whenever I looked at him, he would force a smile and speak slowly, one word at a time. He was afraid I wouldn't understand. Then I thought of Vivian. She was the most popular girl in school. She had a flair for fashion and always looked radiant because of her looks and her warm personality. She was surrounded by friends for my sake. She took a year off school. She grew quiet and withdrawn, no longer caring to dress herself up. She hovered around me, constantly trying to coax a smile out of me, like a guilty prisoner doing penance. And Mom, she used to carry me on her shoulders so I could see the world. But now, she worked herself to exhaustion for my medical bills and hearing aids, and gray hair shot up at her temples before I could even notice. Mom was right. I was a burden. If I died, Dad wouldn't have to spend every day revolving around me. He could go back to climbing mountains, hiking, and traveling. Vivian could finally let go of her guilt. She could dress up again and live the life that was meant to be hers. And Mom wouldn't have to carry this heavy debt. If I died, everyone could be free. Once that thought took root, it spread like weeds in my mind, growing out of control until I couldn't crush it down. I stopped crying. A calm I'd never felt before settled over me slowly. I climbed out from under the blanket. My bare feet touched the wooden floor. Cold seeped up through my soles and crawled across my whole body. but I didn't feel it. I walked to my desk and carefully removed my hearing aid. It was the most valuable thing in the house. Mom had flown overseas and spent a fortune to get it. I placed it on the desk, neat and straight. I told myself I couldn't take it with me. If it broke, it would be too much of a waste if I left it behind. Maybe they could sell it, or maybe it could help Mom pay back a little of what she owed. Then I walked to the balcony door. It was usually locked because Dad was afraid something might happen to me. But that night, as if fate had decided for me, the latch was left undone. I gently pushed the door open. After I stepped outside, I closed it behind me. The wind was strong in the dead of night, shrieking as it poured into my thin pajamas. I lived on the 20th floor. It was so high I could look down over the sleeping city. Neon lights flickered in the distance, like countless eyes watching. I climbed onto the balcony railing. The wind messed up my hair. For the last time, I turned my head and looked back at my home. The living room was silent, and my parents' bedroom door was shut tight. It felt like I could see right through that door. Mom's face twisted with regret and pain. Dad scrolling through outdoor adventure videos while he sighed. I murmured, "Mom, Dad, Vivian, I'm sorry, I love you. That's why I have to leave." I repeated it in my head, closed my eyes, and leaned forward. The drop hit me instantly, the wind screamed past my ears, like 1,000 people crying at once. It wasn't as long as I'd imagined. There was a dull impact, and pain exploded through me. It was a ripping, unspeakable pain, as if every bone in my body was crushed in a single moment. But I didn't even have time to scream. My consciousness was swallowed by endless darkness. My body slammed onto the abandoned second-floor terrace that hadn't been used in years. Blood spread like red spider lilies blooming across the icy concrete, soaking into my white pajamas. The world went completely silent on that unknown late night. In the corner of a city glowing with lights, the 12-year-old me ended a broken, burdensome life. Footsteps echoed nearby. A security guard on patrol trudged past in a heavy coat, a flashlight in his hand. He'd heard that dull thud too. Who the hell is it? Throwing stuff from upstairs in the middle of the night. Seriously, where's your decency? He muttered as the beam of light swept along the edge of the second-floor terrace. But because of the angle, the junk piled near the railing blocked his view. All he saw was a mess of abandoned cardboard boxes and flower pots. What bad luck. It's the middle of the night, for crying out loud. The security guard yawned, shook his head, and didn't give it much thought. The less trouble, the better, as long as nobody was smashing cars or hitting people. He couldn't be bothered to dig deeper. The flashlight beam slid away, and his footsteps faded into the distance. Darkness swallowed the terrace again, hiding the body that was slowly turning cold. Asterisk, I didn't know how much time passed before I became aware again. My body felt impossibly light. Like a feather, I opened my eyes and realized I was floating in midair. I looked down at my hands. They were half-transparent, glowing faintly. Am I dreaming? I thought. I tried swinging my arm, and my whole body shot forward several yards in an instant. The feeling was incredible. For 5 years, I'd been ashamed of not being able to hear. I'd trapped myself inside that cramped room. My body felt heavy, like it was filled with lead, but now I was free. I darted through the night sky like an excited little bird. I flew past the tallest treetops in the neighborhood, past the streetlights, and even up into the clouds. I could hear car horns and strangers talking. Then, all of a sudden, I missed Mom and Dad. I wanted to tell them I could fly, that I could hear again, and that I was better now. I rushed home, stopping outside the window of their bedroom, through the glass. I saw Mom sitting on the edge of the bed with her face buried in her hands, shoulders trembling. Her voice reached me clearly. "Honey, I lost control just now," I yelled at Alex. Dad sat beside her with red-rimmed eyes, gently patting her back. I flew straight through the window into the bedroom. I said excitedly, "Mom, I'm better now." Then I shouted, "Mom, Dad, look. I can hear again. I can fly." But no matter how loud I spoke, no matter how hard I waved my arms, they acted like they couldn't hear me at all. They didn't even lift their heads. Mom kept her face covered, her voice hoarse and raw. I was out of my mind. Trevor Dunphy ran off with the money and left me millions in debt. I really snapped. How could I say something like that to Alex? How could I tell him to die? She slapped herself hard across the face. The sharp crack of the slap sounded especially piercing in the middle of the night. Dad flinched and quickly grabbed her hand. Tears spilled from his eyes, too. Honey, don't do that. I know you're under a lot of pressure. Alex can't hear. He wasn't wearing his hearing aid then. He probably didn't hear anything. But what if he did? Mom asked. She lifted her head. Her eyes were bloodshot, filled with regret and fear. She continued, what if that stupid hearing aid happened to work at that moment? Alex is already so sensitive. If I hurt him, it won't happen, it won't. Dad pulled her into his arms, cradling her head the way you would comfort a child. He said, tomorrow, go to the grocery store and buy him something he likes. Make it up to him properly. He loves you the most. He listens to you. Mom took a deep breath and wiped her face. No, I'm going to check on Alex right now. I can't relax. As she spoke, she stood up and stumbled toward the door. Mom, I'm right here. I followed after her, shouting, but she completely ignored me. I followed Mom to my bedroom door. She stood there, hesitating for a moment. After studying her emotions, she gently turned the knob and opened the door. The room was dark. The only light came from a thin strip of hallway glow slipping inside. On the bed, the blanket was bunched into a lump. It was my oversized teddy bear. Mom thought it was me sleeping. She tiptoed over and sat on the edge of the bed. As I floated above and watched it, my chest ached. Alex, Mom's voice caught, thick with suppressed pain. I'm sorry. She stared at the mound beneath the blanket, her voice trembling. I didn't mean it. You're my precious boy. How could I ever want you? She swallowed hard. Forget it. I messed up today. I was stressed out over work, and I blurted out something awful. Don't blame me, okay? When you wake up, I'll take you to Disneyland. You've always wanted to go, haven't you? I promise you, we'll go together this weekend. She kept talking softly, over and over, like a prayer and a confession at the same time. She reached out, wanting to touch my head, but halfway there, she pulled her hand back, the me. Under the blanket didn't move at all. She thought I was still mad and refusing to answer. She let out a sigh, then stood to leave. Before leaving, she said, "Good night, sweetheart." After that, she backed out carefully, closing the door behind her. The room sank back. Into darkness, I hovered in midair, tears already streaming down my face. I said, "Mom, I don't blame you. I really don't." Crying, I tried to throw myself into her arms and tell her how much I loved her, but when I lunged forward, I passed right through the shut door and hit nothing but emptiness. I stared blankly at my hands. A wave of terror rose inside me. Why couldn't Mom see me? Why couldn't I touch her? I turned and flew to the balcony, clinging to the railing as I looked down. That was my body. In that instant, all my memories rushed back like a tidal wave. I remembered jumping from the 20th floor, the pain, and the darkness. So it wasn't a dream. I was already dead. I was a ghost. I stared at the twisted body below, then turned and looked back at the empty bed. A tangle of emotions twisted inside my chest. I was happy because Mom wouldn't have to worry about my illness anymore, and I wouldn't be a burden, dragging everyone down, but I also felt so bitter, so full of regret. Just minutes ago, Mom said she'd take me to Disneyland this weekend. That was my wish for 5 whole years, but now that promise would never be kept. Mom, I'm sorry. This time, I'm going to disappoint you again, I murmured. The next morning, the sun rose as usual, painting the city in gold. To the world, it was just another ordinary day, but for my family, it was the beginning of collapse. Mom and Vivian woke up early, just like always, and went out to jog around the neighborhood. I watched their backs as they ran side by side into the distance, my heart heavy and confused. Dad was the only one left at home. As the stay-at-home dad, he busied himself in the kitchen, making oatmeal and frying eggs. He called out, "Alex, time to get up." "You little sleepyhead." He wiped his hands and pushed open my bedroom door. "Dad, don't go in." I blocked the doorway, trying to spread my arms to stop him, But Dad walked right through me and went straight to the bed. He asked, "Are you still sleeping?" "The sun's already up," smiling. Dad went to pull open the curtains. Sunlight flooded the room in an instant. He turned around, tidying the desk as he talked to himself. "Alex, your mom told me about last night. She was upset for a moment. Don't take it to heart. She loves you the most. She regretted it so much she cried all night. There's no such thing as an overnight grudge between mother and son, right? She has it hard, carrying this family. You have to understand her." I nodded frantically beside him, shouting, "Dad, I know. I don't blame Mom. I really don't." But Dad couldn't hear me. When I still didn't move, he assumed I was throwing a tantrum again. His tone grew slightly more serious. "Alex, I'm talking to you. Do you hear me? Get up already. Don't let your mom come back and see you still in bed, or she'll get mad again and she won't take you to Disneyland." The bed remained deathly still. Dad began to feel something was off. How can Alex hear Disneyland and still not react? That doesn't make sense, he thought. Anger flared in him. He strode over, grabbed the blanket, and yanked it back hard. "You brat, I'm talking to you." Dad's voice cut off mid-sentence. He didn't find me under the blanket. What he found was only that oversized teddy bear lying alone in the middle of the bed, grinning stupidly up at him. Dad froze. He frowned, like his brain couldn't catch up with what his eyes were seeing. "Alex." He turned to look toward the bathroom, but there was no one. Then he looked toward the closet, and still there was no one. A jolt of dread hit his heart like an electric shock, as if pulled by something he couldn't control. His eyes snapped to the balcony door. It was closed, but unlocked. Dad's face instantly turned pale. His lips started trembling out of control. "Alex, where are you? Don't scare me." He staggered toward the balcony. "Don't look. Dad, don't look." I screamed as I rushed forward. I tried to cover his eyes, but my hands passed straight through his cheek. Dad gripped the railing with both hands, trembling as he leaned out and looked down. By then, a crowd had already formed below, older folks out for morning exercise, young people on their way to work, and even the property security guards. They surrounded the second-floor terrace, pointing and whispering, "Oh my God. Whose kid is that? That's horrible. Looks like pajamas. Maybe he was sleepwalking and fell. It's a little boy. What a tragedy." Through the gaps in the crowd, that shocking dark red stain on the second-floor terrace was like a blade stabbing straight into Dad's eyes. He couldn't see the face clearly, but the white pajamas were ones he'd bought for me. That body was his son, the child he had raised for 12 years. A scream ripped through the peaceful morning. It was sharp and desperate, like it had been torn straight out of the deepest part of his soul. Dad's legs gave out, and he collapsed onto the balcony floor. His hands clutched at his chest, gasping for air, but no sound came out. It was the kind of silence that came after unbearable grief. Asterisk downstairs, by the building entrance, Mom and Vivian came back from their jog, wiping sweat as they walked. Seeing the crowd packed at the entrance, Mom frowned and asked, "What's going on? Why are there so many people?" Vivian stood on her toes to look. "Looks like something happened. I hear an ambulance." Neither of them even considered it might be about us. In their minds, I was still sleeping safely at home. They even walked closer, trying to find out what had happened. "Ma'am, what's going on?" Mom asked Naomi Cruz, a neighbor she knew. Naomi looked horrified and full of pity. "Oh my God, Bethany, where were you?" "Something terrible happened. A child fell from upstairs last night and died. He's on the second-floor terrace." "Huh?" Mom sighed and shook her head. "What kind of parent lets that happen?" "That's so sad." Vivian chimed in too. "Yeah, where were the parents?" Naomi hesitated, her eyes darting nervously toward Mom. In the end, she clenched her teeth and forced the words out. "Bethany, the clothes that kid was wearing. They look like Alex's." Mom and Vivian went pale instantly, drained of all color. "What the hell are you talking about?" Vivian lunged forward and shoved Naomi aside. Her eyes were wide and furious. "Alex is asleep at home. Say one more word, and I swear, Vivian, let go." "I saw the clothes. They really looked like Alex's." Naomi stammered, trembling. Mom's face drained of every trace of color. She swayed twice, almost collapsing. Just then, hurried, unsteady footsteps came from inside the building. Dad burst out, wailing. He'd even lost one shoe while running. He looked completely out of his mind. Honey. Honey. Alex. Alex, Dad's face twisted with grief. He pointed shakily toward the second-floor terrace, his throat making choking, rattling sounds. But he couldn't force out a single complete sentence. The moment Mom and Vivian saw him like that, it was like lightning struck them. They went mad, shoving through the crowd and sprinting for the entrance to the second-floor terrace. The property management had already opened the door leading to it when Mom and Vivian rushed onto the terrace and saw the cold body. Lying in a pool of blood, time seemed to freeze. They saw the familiar white pajamas and that thin, small frame. It was my body, Alex. Mom let out a broken scream, the kind of sound only a human in unbearable pain could make. She tried to rush forward and pull me into her arms, but the police and Vivian grabbed her from behind, holding her back with all their strength. Don't touch anything. The medical examiner isn't here yet. You can't disturb the scene. She screamed, let go of me. That's my son. I have to save him. He's still alive. He has to be alive. Mom fought like a wild animal, her eyes bloodshot, veins standing out on her forehead. Ma'am, calm down. Your son. He's all ready. The ambulance siren rose from far away, slicing through the quiet neighborhood as it came closer and closer. Medical staff charged up the stairs with a stretcher. When the doctor lifted my eyelids, listened with his stethoscope, then shook his head in regret and covered me with a white sheet, Mom suddenly went still. Her mouth hung open, like someone had squeezed her throat shut. Then she clutched her chest. Her face turned a dead, ashen gray, and she fell backward like a board. Mom, what's wrong? Vivian screamed again in terror. The shock, combined with exhaustion, days of stress, and high blood pressure, made Mom's heart stop. She collapsed on the spot. The scene erupted into chaos, crying, shouting, and sirens tangled together in one awful storm. The ambulances split into two directions. One carried my body to the morgue. The other took Mom, hovering between life and death. Racing to the hospital, Dad looked hollow, like his soul had been ripped out. He followed the ambulance in a daze. Moving like a machine, Vivian held her sorrow down with both hands, crying as she made trembling calls to relatives to arrange my funeral, while still keeping one eye on Mom's condition. In one night, our family was destroyed. I floated in midair. Watching it all fall apart, my heart felt like it was being sliced into pieces. I muttered, no. This wasn't supposed to happen. I covered my mouth and cried without sound. I just wanted them to be free and live better. How did it turn into this? I hurt Mom and destroyed my family. Guilt came down on me like a giant invisible hand, crushing me until I couldn't breathe. I watched the ambulance carrying Mom disappear into the distance. Without hesitation, I chased after it with everything I had. Mom, you can't die. Please don't die, I shouted. Outside the emergency room, the red surgery in progress, light glared overhead. Dad was collapsed on a bench, staring blankly at the floor, like a hollow statue with no soul inside. After handling everything downstairs, Vivian rushed over. Sweat ran down her face, her eyes were raw with tears, and her clothes were still dirty with dust. Dad, how's Mom? She asked. Dad didn't react at all, like he hadn't heard a single word. Vivian couldn't hold it in anymore. With a heavy thud, she dropped to her knees in front of him, clinging to his legs as she sobbed uncontrollably. Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't watch over Alex properly. It's my fault. This is on me. If only I'd checked on him last night. Dad finally moved, slowly. He lowered his head and looked at Vivian as she cried. Then he reached out and stroked her hair. He said, "It's not your fault. It's mine. It's my fault I didn't lock the balcony door." They clung to each other and cried, grief spreading through the hallway like thick fog. I drifted nearby, watching them fall apart, and my heart felt like it was breaking. I was the one who wanted to commit suicide. A nurse hurried out, holding a form. Who is family for Bethany Vasquez? I'm her daughter. Vivian rushed over, her voice trembling. Your mother needs thrombolysis and a stent placed. Here's the critical condition notice. Sign here. Dad swayed, nearly passing out again. Vivian's hand shook as she signed. I drifted in after the nurse into the emergency room. Machines beeped nonstop. Mom lay on the operating table, her face gray and paper white. A tube was in her mouth and electrode pads covered her chest. Doctors moved fast, fighting to bring her back. Charge. The defibrillator. 200 joules. Clear. Mom's body jerked upward violently with the shock, then slammed back down. On the heart monitor, the line that meant life was still a flat, brutal straight line again. 300 joules. Clear. There was still nothing. I floated beside the operating table, completely broken. Staring at Mom's lifeless face, I pleaded, "Mom, wake up. It's me, Alex. Oh God. Please don't take her. I'm the one who made a mistake. I'm a terrible son. The punishment should be on me. Please spare Mom." I sobbed and screamed, pounding on the cold machines as if it could bring her back. But no matter what I did, that line never moved. A long, continuous beep filled the room. The doctor sighed and lowered the paddles. The patient's will to live is weak. There's no spontaneous heartbeat anymore. At that moment, it felt like the sky collapsed on top of me. Just as the doctor was about to announce the time of death, something unbelievable happened. I saw a half-transparent shadow slowly drift out of Mom's body. It was Mom's soul. Her spirit looked lost. She glanced at her body on the operating table, then at the doctors rushing around, and then she saw me, floating in the air. In an instant, all the confusion in her eyes vanished, replaced by overwhelming joy and crushing guilt. "Alex." Mom's soul drifted toward me, her voice shaking. "Is it really you?" I couldn't hold back anymore. I threw myself into her arms. This time, I didn't pass through her. Our souls met, and for the first time, it felt warm and real. "Mom." I hugged her tightly, crying so hard I could barely breathe. She hugged me just as tightly, tears pouring down her face. "I'm sorry, Alex, I'm late. I shouldn't have yelled at you. I didn't mean it. I regret it so much." She kept apologizing for what she said last night, for her neglect over the years, and for not protecting me the way she should have. I looked up through my tears and smiled proudly. "Mom, look. I can hear now. I can hear so clearly. I've healed." "Really?" Mom stared at me in shock and joy, reaching out to touch my ear. "You can really hear again?" "I can. I hear everything perfectly." I replied. I held her hand and spun in midair, clinging to her like I used to when I was little. Mom gently patted my head, eyes full of love. "That's good. I knew it. Alex, you're the best. Come with me. I don't feel safe leaving you alone. I'm coming with you." She took my hand and pointed toward the distance. There was a soft white light there, like a doorway to another world. She said, "We'll go together. I'll never make you upset again. I'll play with you every day, okay?" I was so happy that I nodded hard. "Okay. I want to be with you forever." Holding Mom's hand, I was just about to walk with her toward that light. Just then, Dad and Vivian's desperate screams came from outside the operating room. "Honey, don't leave me. Mom, wake up. Please, wake up." They pierced the walls, pierced life and death itself, and rang clearly in our ears. I froze. I saw Dad collapse outside the door and Vivian on her knees, wailing. If Mom left, too, this family would truly fall apart. Dad and Vivian would fall apart. I couldn't be that selfish. I was already dead. I couldn't drag Mom with me. I let go of Mom's hand. "Alex?" she asked, confused. I took a deep breath and looked straight into her eyes. "Mom, you can't come with me." "Why?" Mom panicked, reaching for me again. "How can I leave you alone over there? What if it's dark? What if bad people hurt you?" She tried to grab me, but I stepped back and pointed toward the door. "Dad and Vivian are still there. Mom, you're the backbone of this family. They need you. I'm free now, and I'm happy. I can take care of myself. Mom, go back and live well. Work hard and take care of Dad and Vivian for me." Mom looked at her crying husband and daughter outside. A struggle flickered in her eyes. But even stronger was her guilt and her reluctance to leave me. She said, "But Vivian has your dad. You only have yourself. I'm not scared." I shook my head firmly. I'll become a star in the sky and watch over you, Mom. If you really love me, go back and live well for me." The second she froze, I gathered all my strength and shoved her hard. I said, "Go back, Mom." Her spirit lost its balance and plunged straight down toward her body on the operating table, Alex. Her cry echoed through the air. The next second, her soul slammed back into her body. The flat line on the heart monitor suddenly began to move again. It was fragile, but it carried the rhythm of life. The doctor, who was about to pull the sheet up, jolted in shock, then shouted, "We've got it. There's a heartbeat. Quick. Keep going. Epinephrine." Outside the door, Dad and Vivian burst into tears of relief and threw their arms around each other when they heard the commotion. Inside the emergency room, the chaos began again. I floated in the corner, watching Mom slowly return to life. My face was soaked with tears, but my lips curved into a relieved smile. "Mom, goodbye. You have to live happily. For me too," I murmured. 3 days later, Mom was finally transferred out of the ICU and into a regular hospital room. The first thing she did after she woke up was look around frantically for me. Even with tubes all over her body, she struggled to get out of bed. She asked, "Where's Alex? Where is Alex?" Vivian held back tears as she pressed her down. "Mom, don't move. The doctor said you can't get up yet." Mom grabbed Vivian's hand so hard it hurt. She said, "Just now, I saw Alex at the edge of death. He pushed me back. He told me to take care of this family. He even said he can hear again and that he's completely healed." The moment she said it, Vivian's tears burst out like a dam breaking, but she bit her lip hard, not daring to make a sound. Dad tried to soothe Mom. He swallowed down unbearable grief and forced a smile that looked worse than crying. "Honey, you were dreaming. Alex is at home sleeping. He caught a little cold and didn't want to come to the hospital. I told him to rest at home." After hearing that, Mom went quiet for a moment. She stared at Dad's swollen, red eyes and at Vivian's dodging gaze. That careful tone and that gentle lie meant to comfort someone was the same as the way they used to comfort me years ago, promising my hearing would come back. 2 silent streams of tears slid down Mom's cheeks. She stopped struggling. Her body slowly went limp against the pillow, and she closed her eyes. She knew that I was truly gone. I was the one who pushed her back from the edge of death, and that was my final goodbye. A long silence followed. The air in the ward felt heavy enough to suffocate. Suddenly, Mom opened her eyes and said, weak but absolute, "Pull the 4 out, Mom." "What are you doing?" Vivian cried in shock. "Pull it out. I'm leaving the hospital." Mom's voice trembled with a sob. "When Alex was alive, he always wore that ugly hearing aid. He never dressed up. That's why other kids laughed at him. Since he's gone, he has to look perfect. I'm going to pick the best outfit myself, and I'm going to take him to Disneyland." "Honey," Dad finally broke. He collapsed onto Mom and sobbed out loud. The 3 of them supported each other all the way to the mall. Mom still wore her hospital gown under her coat. Her face was pale, and every few steps she had to stop and catch her breath. But she refused the wheelchair and insisted on walking. The sales clerk saw this strange family and hurried over with a bright smile, but Mom's grief-filled eyes scared her into stepping back. Mom searched through racks of boys' clothes. In the end, she chose a camouflage utility vest outfit, reinforced with metal studs along the chest and pocket edges. Under the lights, it glinted like it was always ready for adventure. It was the same outfit Peter Pan wore. Mom's hands trembled as she took it off the hanger. She held it up to the air, as if I were standing right in front of her. She said, "Alex, do you think this one looks good? If you wear it, you'll be Peter Pan." People nearby looked over strangely, but Mom didn't care. I floated in front of her, staring at the cool outfit. It really was beautiful. I reached out, and my ghostly fingers passed through the collar. I smiled and nodded at Mom, then spun lightly in place, pretending I was wearing it. Mom seemed to sense something. Tears the size of pearls fell onto the fabric, blooming into little dark flowers. "Okay, this one then. I'm buying it for you." The funeral was simple, quiet, and solemn. They didn't inform too many people, only our closest relatives and friends, along with a few teachers and classmates who chose to come. The memorial hall was filled with flowers. In the center sat my black and white portrait. In the photo, I was smiling sweetly. It had been taken 5 years ago, before everything happened. The moment Mom looked at that picture, the strength she'd been forcing herself to hold on to finally shattered. With a hard thud, she dropped to her knees, pounding the ground with both fists as she wailed in agony, "Alex, I'm sorry. Why did I say such horrible things that night? I forced you to death myself. I'm a murderer. I'm the murderer." Every word cut like a knife. Everyone there cried. Before the cremation, the staff wheeled me out. I was already dressed in that Peter Pan outfit Mom had picked. There was makeup on my face, and I looked like I was asleep. Even Vivian, who had been holding it in, finally broke. She threw herself forward, collapsing over my body as she sobbed and wailed. "I shouldn't have taken you to watch fireworks. I ruined your whole life. You can hit me or scold me. Just don't go. I'll play with you every day from now on. Please, wake up." Dad had cried until he couldn't stand anymore. He could only lean against the wall, gasping for air, his eyes terrifyingly empty. I moved through them, trying to wipe away their tears. I said, "Vivian, I don't blame you. I really don't. That accident wasn't your fault. Dad, Mom, don't cry." But my hands passed through their bodies again and again. In the end, I was pushed into the cremation chamber. When the flames swallowed me, I didn't feel pain. Instead, I felt a warmth I had never known before. It was like going back to childhood, on winter nights, when Mom wrapped me in her big coat and held me close, warming me with her arms. It felt like coming home. Mom held the still warmer in the way she used to hold me when I was little, gentle and careful, like she was afraid she might wake me from a deep sleep. A relative offered to carry it for her, but she shook her head. "I'll carry him. It's dark, and he's afraid of the dark. Otherwise, he won't be able to find his way home." After the burial, Mom placed my favorite candies in front of the gravestone, along with the oversized teddy bear. As the sun sank, golden light washed over the stone, warming the black and white photo with a soft glow. I hovered anxiously, urging them to go home. I was afraid Mom's body couldn't take it, but Mom sat there for a long time, until the sky turned completely dark, with Dad and Vivian supporting her. She finally stood up. She stared at the gravestone for a long moment, eyes trembling. She said, "Alex, don't worry. I'll live well. Carrying your share too. I'll pay off the debt. I'll take care of your dad, and your sister will be okay." When they got home, the house that used to feel so suffocating now felt painfully empty. While sorting through my things, Dad found my hearing aid under my pillow before I committed suicide. I had taken it off and placed it neatly beneath the pillow because I knew it was expensive. Mom had it custom-made overseas and spent a lot of money on it. I didn't want it to break. Dad held the hearing aid in his hand and burst into tears again. "You foolish kid." In my desk drawer, Vivian found a small notebook, stiff from use, and a heavy cookie tin. "Dad, Mom, look," she said, with trembling hands. Vivian opened the notebook. It was filled with drawings I'd made over the past 5 years. On the first page was a drawing of Vivian's back as she took me to watch fireworks. The drawing was childish and messy, but next to it was a huge smiling face, with words written beside it. "Vivian took me to watch fireworks. I'm so happy." On the second page was Dad's side profile while he cooked. A red heart was drawn next to it. "Dad's cooking is the best. It's even better than restaurants. Dad is a master chef." On the very last page was Mom's back, bent over from work. Next to it, in crooked handwriting, was a single line, "Mom, I saved a lot of money for you to use. Don't always look so worried. Be happier. I love you." Vivian opened the cookie tin. Inside, it was packed full of loose change. There were coins, $5 bills, and even the cash relatives had tucked into birthday and holiday cards. It was what I had saved little by little over the past 5 years. Looking at those childish drawings, that line that stabbed straight through the heart, and that heavy tin full of money, the three of them couldn't hold back anymore. They clung to each other and sobbed. This time, it wasn't from despair, it was from being moved by love. Only then did they truly understand that the little boy who couldn't hear and barely spoke had been loving this family deeply the whole time, in his own way. His leaving wasn't running away, it was his way of giving them peace. I floated above them. I watched them cry in each other's arms and watched the grief in their eyes slowly harden into determination. I knew they had finally let go. My body began turning transparent, little by little, breaking apart into specks of starlight that drifted into the air. It was time for me to go, but I knew love had never disappeared. They would carry my love with them and keep living strong for the rest of their lives, and I would become the brightest star in the sky, forever lighting the way home for them.